All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. And in the last video, we began working with the C DataGridView, and I'm working on an example of that. And if you take a look right now, this is what we started with. We said we wanted something called Person App, and there it is. And we wanted that Person App to have underneath its main portion, so to speak, we wanted it to have an app.config file and a program.cs file. And if you look, there's app.config and there's program.cs. All right. And then we wanted a models folder. There that is with a person in there. And if we look at that file, it is pretty much what we asked it to be. I did go and default, since they were all strings, I defaulted all of them to string.empty. All right. Then we have a data folder with a person repository in it. We haven't written anything in there yet, except I made the class public. All right. And we changed the name of our form1.cs to frmstartup.cs, and we added a create person, frm create person, and frm read all persons, an frm update person, and an frm delete person. So when you look at these right here, CRUD, that's going to give us the ability to do CRUD. All right, so we're going to start working on these right now, but before we do, I did want to mention one thing, and that is in the app.config file. I added a little bit into that. And what I mean is, when you look at in there and you'll notice that at the bottom, it now says provider name equals system.data.sql client. And that's actually a little bit old school. The real recommendation, I believe, right now is for Microsoft.data.sql client, but I'm going to leave it the way it is. What this does is it lets the C# app that we're working on know that the database that we're using is Microsoft's SQL Server, and it should use all the classes that are available in that library with it. Now, will it still work without it? I believe it would have, but I think for completeness, I think that that's what should have been in there. All right. Now, we don't have a database, I don't believe yet, called person.db. I don't remember if I made it or not, so I'm going to check. And we'll look at our SQL Server Object Explorer. And I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to look under databases. And we do not have it's in alphabetic order. You'll notice I do not have a person in there, a person DB. So I'm going to create it right now. So I'm going to right mouse click, add new database. All right. And it says, where do you want to add that new database? And so I'm going to put it right here. I'm just going to type in person DB. I think it'll work like this. We're going to find out. So do we have a person DB? And it looks like it just added it right here. So right now, when you look, any table or anything that's in there, it's all system stuff. So I'm going to right mouse click on this, and I'm going to add a new table. All right. By default, it just calls it table, which I don't want. So I'm going to change it to person. Or try to change it to person. Now, when I do this, there's two ways that I can do it. I can do it up here, or I can do it down here. What's the difference? Well, that's the GUI kind of version of it, and this is the non-GUI version of it, for lack of better words. And I've done one up here already, so I'm going to try doing the one down here. So what am I going to put in here? Well, I'm going to add all of the different fields that we want in here. So instead of ID, we wanted this to be person ID. All right. So I'm going to leave it at person ID. And this is a primary key. It already says that, int not null, primary key. but I'm going to get rid of the not null because primary keys cannot be null to begin with. But after int, I'm going to add identity 1, 1, like that. Now, why did I do that? All right. What does that do? That says that this field is going to begin at 1 and will automatically be incremented by 1 for each new record that we add. All right. So we're going to put the stuff in here now. So first name, this will be an nvarchar. All right, which is the way that we do not what's the word I'm looking for? Not fixed lengths, but variable length fields. Thank you, Jeff. And we'll say first name. We can make this any size we want. Let's make it 25. And then we'll make last name. And we'll also make that an nvarchar of size 25. Should be big enough for both of those, I would think. And address. Now, sometimes addresses are very long. So we'll make it, I don't know, 100. It's probably longer than we need it to be. All right. So we've got first name, we've got last name, we've got address. We'll do city next. That'll be an nvarchar. I don't know. Let's make that 50. Probably bigger than we need, but that's okay. State. Now we could do this two ways. We could put here just a varchar and make it size 2. Or a char, I should say, and make it size 2. We'd be using state abbreviations, but let's just make it an nvarchar. And I would think, again, that like 25 would be plenty big for that. All right. And finally, we'll put in zip code. And let's make that an nvarchar. Now, if we said a zip code is 5 with a dash and 4, that would be 10. So let's make it 10. All right. So this is what we have in here. Now you'll notice with all these right now, because I didn't write the word null in there, it allows nulls. So let's click this off and see if, and you'll notice that by doing this, it made these all not null. Now, is that big a thing? Of course not. But I just want you to see that, again, you can do this one way, you can do it the other way, you can even combine them. Now, why is address and state, why are those in blue? I'm not real positive, to be honest with you, but we don't really care. This should work just fine. All right, so we now have this. We now have this. So I'm going to do a file. In fact, let's do this. Let's do a let's do an update. All right, and we'll tell it when this comes up to update the database. Now I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go back into my SQL Server Object Explorer, and now notice there's my DBO person. It's there. All right, so again, what we have done thus far is we went in, we created our app.config file, we created a data folder with a person repository in it, we created a models folder which has our class that we're going to use in this. All right, and we went in and actually created the stuff, so to speak, in here. All right, so we're getting there. Now, let's go in and create this person repository, okay? Now, this is going to handle all database access for person objects. I want to say that again. It's going to handle all database access for person objects, all right? As we said, this is in the data. So in this data, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring in the NuGet Packet Manager. You've seen me do this before. So I'm going to go to NuGet Package Manager Console. We want to make sure that our default, no, of course, now we don't want this to be BMI core. All right. We want the default project here to be person app. All right, so that'll be our default project. And let's install here. I don't know why I did it like this. I was hoping it would let me put in data here. Package source, default project. Well, that's the way it's showing it, so we're going to try it like this. All right, hopefully it's going to work just fine. Install-package Microsoft.entity framework core minus version 8.0.22. That went fine without a hitch. And then we're going to say .sql server. That went in without a hitch. Then we're going to say tools. That was fine. And then we're going to say design. We probably don't need the design, but I'm going to put it in anyway. Okay, so everything is now in there. That's good. All right. Now that it's in there, my hope is, and like I said, I wanted to actually install it here. And I was hoping for the, it's got the default project. But hopefully that's going to work out just fine the way it is. We're going to find out. How's that? All right. And you can see that it looks like right now I'm getting a couple things, but it's in the validation library, so we don't even care about that, to be honest with you. Let's get rid of that. Let's see if we can get rid of that. There we go. Okay. So we're going to start working with this person repository. Now I'm hoping I'm going to be able to add some stuff into here. Want the system. The collections generic should be fine. We're not going to use link next. We're not going to use any of these. So I'm going to put in here using system.data. We're not using it yet. Using system.data.sql client. And I also want to say using person app.models. We want to let it know that what we're working with in here. All right, so hopefully right now those went on without a hitch, and that's a good start. All right, so what is this doing? What is this class? I mean, what is its job, this repository? What's it supposed to be doing? All right, this class will handle the database access for person objects. I don't know how to say it really any cleaner, so to speak, than that. All right, so what we're going to want to put in here is a bunch of stuff, for lack of better words. All right, now before we even get into that, okay, remember that what we want to be able to use eventually in here is we want to be able to use this data grid view. All right, so please keep that in mind as we're working in here. Okay, all right. So since this is what we're going to be able to use to handle database access for all objects, we're going to want to be able to come in here and get every person. So that'll be basically the equivalent of a select. We want to use add a person. All right, which is going to be like the create in our CRUD. We're going to want update a person, which is going to be the U in our CRUD, and we want delete a person, which is going to be in there. And those are going to be all the things we're going to do in those different forms. All right, so let's start. This is going to put it on multiple lines because it's not going to fit otherwise. Now I could be wrong here, but I believe that it will allow me to put this on multiple lines. I don't have to line things up, but I'm just that way. So there we go. So what we're doing here is the connection string says we want to connect to this database. That will be our connection string. All right. Okay, so that's our start. Whoa, hello. Okay. Now, what we'll put in here then are our CRUD operations. And what I mean by that is we will have a get all persons, and that's going to be the equivalent of read all database records. We're going to have add person, and that's going to be the equivalent of create a new database record. We will have update person, and that will allow us to update an existing database record. And we will have delete person, which will allow us to delete an existing database record. Now I could have just put all those commands, or those comments rather, by each routine, but I put it at the top so you can see what's going on here. All right, so we'll start with public. It's going to return a data table, and it's called get all persons. Now, as you probably will guess, we're going to get an error right away because we're not returning anything yet. And notice what that's going to allow us to do. It's going to allow us to read, or how about this? We're going to say this will be a read-only display of all database records. All right. Now we're going to use a using statement in here because, again, it's going to allow us, we're going to use a using statement, I believe, in all of these because it'll allow us to, put things together that belong together. So, all right. All right. So we're creating a new connection in here. Okay. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab, remember we're doing this, I'm going to redo this using Entity Framework Core next. All right, but this is more the ADO way of doing it. Why am I doing that? Because I want to be able to show you this, and then we'll make the changes, the EF Core changes, okay? And when we do, what you're going to see basically is we're not going to have to change much of anything. If you say I don't understand, then please just bear with me. We're still getting that error up on top because, again, we're not returning anything yet. So what is this doing? All right, we're coming in here. Put this on a separate line so you can read it. Okay, so we're coming in here and we're creating a new database connection. Then we've got this thing called a data adapter. It's kind of an intermediary. All right, it's going to basically be used to hold the results of this. But we want to put these into a table, really into the person table. So we create a new data table object. We fill that object, okay? And then we return it to the calling program. Now that might make sense. That might make a little sense. I don't know. But again, I'll put all this stuff out there in just a bit. So now we'll have public void add person, and this will be person. Now you'll notice we have no errors in here because that's a void. And again, if we want, let's just do this. We'll say CRUD operations. Let's just do it like this as we write these. So get all persons, and now we have add person. All right. We're going to have another using, just like we did before. In fact, I think I can copy this. Okay. And now this is going to just run an SQL command. Okay, and it's going to be an insert command. So we're going to say string SQL equals, and it's going to let us know that we're getting this from parameters, so we need that ampersand at the beginning. And then inside of curly braces, we're going to say insert into person. I'm probably getting pretty long with this video already. Yeah, we'll just finish this one up and then we'll start the next one in the next video. Oops. So insert into person. What do we want to insert? First name, not first name. First name. Last name. Address. City. State. Zip code. And where we're going to get that stuff from. So the values, this is where the stuff is going to come from. Okay? And it looks a little funky, but let me put it in and then we'll go over it. So in here we're going to put in at first name, at last name, at address, at city, at state, at zip code. Okay, and that's going to end this. And you'll notice so far we have no errors, which is always a great start, except this is giving me one right here. It says that a comma is expected. Which tends to say I'm missing a comma someplace. Don't see where though, but hopefully that'll flush out in just a minute. All right, now we're going to say SQL command cmd equals new SQL command. In other words, this is what we're going to use to run this command. All right, cmd dot parameters dot add with value, and it says, all right, it says into ampersand ampersand first name. What we want to use in there, Let me move this over so you can see what's going on. All right, so what we want to put in there is person.firstname. All right. Now I'm going to do a little cheating here, and what I mean is this. All right. So we've got first name. Let's put in last name, address, city, state, and finally zip code. I think the reason I'm getting this, I think that paren should be there and then get rid of it here. There we go. And finally, zip code here. Okay. Then I have to tell it to open the connection. So con.open. And then I want to tell it to run the command. cmd.execute non-query. Since it's not returning anything, it's a non-query. So we'll put here open connection, and here we'll say execute command. All right, this is going to say right here fill parameters with values from, it's really, for lack of better words, I believe at least, well, let's see. We'll just say from program for right now. All right. That's not very well put, but that's what I'm going to use for now. So we've now got this. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to want to bring these in. I'm just going to copy these comments down. So we've got our CRUD operations. We did read only, which is our read in CRUD. We did the C create, which is in CRUD. And when we come back in the next video, I'm going to do the update and the delete. So we'll pick it up there in the next video. See you then.